host, Rusty.
And I'm Mr. J.
So tonight's episode is going to be about our robotic overlords. Is that correct?
Yeah, somewhat like that. We're kind of like going to go over some of the bigger businesses buying up different things and what it can mean in the future, why they would buy up these things in the future or right now. But right now, we actually have something very interesting that happened to us over the week. Rusty, why don't you go ahead and take the...
So currently the room that we record in is a multi-purpose room. But at the time, the room was not being used other than for our recording. We weren't recording that day. But anyway, basically I came into the room to check on things, and I saw that my blinds had been ripped down, and some of our scripting, our notes, had been shredded.
Mm-hmm.
This was weird because like the window was closed, no one had come in, no one had broken in, no one else had been in this room at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. Now, he texted me, this happened like what, last Thursday or last Friday, right? Or something like that?
I think it was Sunday.
Or Sunday,
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Sunday.
So he texts me, and I'm like, well, I'm like going into investigation mode. I'm like, okay, so is there like any signs of a break-in or is there anything like that? He's like, no. He's like, I thought it was someone else that came in and ripped it up for some reason or something like that. And I'm like, okay. I was like, well, do you have pictures, anything of the scene or whatever? He's like, oh, I already cleaned it up. I was like, why? Why did you clean it up? He's like, oh, I thought it was somebody else or something like that. I was like, well, was it? He's like, well, no, it wasn't. And I was like, this is why we can never prove anything. Because, you know, he cleaned everything up.
I did have the shreds of paper.
Yeah.
Now, I would have thought it was like my dog or something, or maybe like some of my family that was over. But you would think that if it was shredded by like a dog or even like someone just trying to screw with us,
Yeah.
it would be like completely messed up.
Right.
Well, our notes were shredded into like thin shreds
vertical
like that.
plate. Yeah.
Like only vertically. Very neatly. And they were scattered about the floor in different areas of the room. So I don't know what that could have been. But like I said, my blinds on my window had been ripped down.
Yeah.
From like the little like mount, little holder in the
Yeah.
windowsill.
Yeah, I was actually looking at that before we started recording. I was like, how did they do that?
Yeah, and it actually broke the mount. The blinds are just kind of sitting there now. But yeah, it broke the little bracket that actually holds them in.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I don't know what it could have been.
Did you, like outside your, like, where does this window go to?
To my backyard. So it's completely secure. And I have plants in front of it, so somebody.
There was nothing like, did you check over there or anything like that?
There wasn't anything out of the normal.
No. Yeah, because I came in here before we recorded and was looking around to see if I could find anything else and really couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. I'm glad you put up our equipment before all that happened.
Yeah. I just had I had the table put up, and all of our equipment was put away.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, no one else had been in here. No one else touched our stuff. I don't know where that could have come from.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, because the notes that were ripped up was on our last, or not the last Kirk conspiracy, but the one before, the Space Force.
Yeah, it was about the Space Force stuff.
I have some.
But it was the first available. Like, it was the first page that was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was the one that we had available. So, I don't think it means much about the subject matter.
I don't know.
You think it does?
It could have been. Like, I mean, now I'm just going off on this since, you know, it seems kind of fishy that it's just that. But, I mean, when gray aliens, the grays, have been known to break into houses, and it's known that Doors were locked. All the windows were closed. Things like that. Doesn't look like they actually broke in, but there would be people missing or people identifying with a gray alien or a slender man watching them whenever they're asleep or in the living room, and then they just disappear like that, stuff like that. And that seems kind of likely. I mean, I don't know, but that seems to be what could be. I mean, I don't know why a gray would be interested in what we're talking about with the Space Force and everything like that, but I mean, it's a possibility.
I don't know. That kind of weirds me out. I would be scared of aliens.
Or another possibility. I mean, another possibility is an apparition of some sort.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't had any experiences like that in my house before, so I don't know. Maybe you brought something here.
Probably. That or a goblin.
A goblin. Yeah.
Oh, goblin.
Always causing mischief.
Yeah. I mean.
Other than that, we don't really have anything for current conspiracy.
I mean,
that was just the one thing that kind of weirded me out this week.
Yeah, I mean, when he said that, this whole week I've been thinking, like, what could it have been? I mean, more than likely it's a family member of his, or his dog Layla probably came in and, I don't know, jumped up and ripped up a piece, I don't know.
See, but she's like 100 years old.
Yeah, but so, she's old, so.
She's never done anything like that.
When houses get old, they do weird things.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I mean, I believe you when you say that no one was in here, but it just seems odd, you know. Maybe it was Broomhilda. She freaked out or something.
Yeah, some psychotic rage. But yeah, let us know what you guys think.
Yeah,
if you have any ideas, if anything like this has happened to you before.
Yeah, I mean, let us know, because that freaked me out. It freaked him out. So
yeah,
who knows? Maybe more will happen, and we'll find out, huh? Kind of jinxed you a bit, just because it doesn't happen in my house.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. So what's our topic?
Well, there's not really a name to it. It's more of like these companies buying up different little businesses, retaining to like genetics and home improvement, or not home improvement, but like home security systems and like cameras and everything like that, and like softwares and things that like track you when you go, like GPS systems that track you wherever you go, or like picture services or social media services that like take pictures and like of your surroundings and your face and things like that. Mostly we're going to be talking about like Google and Apple, more than likely, on like the little technologies that they have and things like that. To start off, I wanted to talk about that service that you actually signed up for, the 23.
Oh yeah, 23andMe.
Yeah, 23andMe.
Yeah. So it's basically a do-it-yourself genetic testing kit to find out what your, I guess, genetic origins are. And they claim that they can tell you specifically like what generations certain nationalities or ethnicities were incorporated into your DNA. Some of genetic health risks that you might have. They can tell you who your family is if your family has also done that same test.
Okay. Yeah, you can like find your relatives and like talk to them like pen pal wise, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it has a little bit of. I mean, it's really interesting. It's really cool. But when you had explained to me that 23andMe was actually a subsidiary of Google.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe they bought it last year or something like that.
And I did know that 23andMe does reserve the right to use your DNA for other purposes, research purposes. Yeah, that was a little alarming because, like, what does Google want with my DNA?
That's the thing,
you know.
And like, how do you send their DNA to you, or how do you send the DNA to
them?
Well,
you just spit in a cup, basically, and it takes the loose, I guess, cells from the inside of your mouth that are in your spit, and they do the testing off of that.
How much saliva do you need to like have per?
Oh, it's like maybe 2 tablespoons.
That's a lot of saliva.
Yeah, I mean, it took about 5 minutes to fill it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I did it for the personal aspect of it. Like, I wanted to learn my history, where I come from, that kind of stuff. But
the thing is, like, if you get a DNA test at a doctor's office or anything like that, I mean, they just swab your mouth with a cotton swab and
yeah,
put it in. I mean, you don't need that much saliva.
yeah, you're right. I mean, they tell you outright they're going to be using it for other stuff.
Now,
It's just that they don't tell you exactly what they're going to use
okay,
it for.
that's the thing.
And they don't tell you, like they never told you blatantly, oh, it's going into Google's databases.
Mhm.
Like, they never say that, you know. If indeed that's what they're doing, I would like to know why. I would like to know what Google plans to do with my DNA,
Uh-huh.
because Google is not in the business of genetic research, at least not openly.
No.
You know.
I mean, genetics itself is such a untapped market, though. Because there's clonings right now. I mean, clonings are still in their very, very young stages. There is these celebrities that can create designer babies by using the DNA of both people, and basically making the perfect person or the perfect child for themselves without having disease or anything like that. They can make them a boy, they can make them a girl, they can make them have blue eyes or brown eyes, blonde hair, brown hair,
Yeah.
so et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I mean, it's now I'm thinking of more of the lines of like creating people, or maybe not creating people, but testing DNA on like different situations or different climates. So we've touched before that our government is becoming more and more active in space and space exploration, things like that. Well, the government may not have all the assets to test out certain things, like how are we going to make sure that humans are going to be able to withstand zero gravity or a lower gravity, higher gravity. How will they react in low oxygen situations? How will they react in, say, radiation storms? Because some of these planets that we plan on visiting within the next couple of decades, they don't have ozone layers like Earth does. So they are more likely to be hit by gamma radiation storms or ultraviolet rays, things like that, things that are really harmful to the human being.
Right.
Well, if Google bought this 23andMe, and they right now they just have geneticists that are more like anthropologists who can go out and see what well, not only that, but 23andMe would have to have, because they also like go back and find records of your past relatives and things like that, but right?
No,
like no, they don't.
That's a different company.
Oh, okay.
That would be Ancestry.
Oh, okay. I thought they did that too.
Ancestry has their own genetic tests that they do relate those things.
Mm-hmm.
23andMe is more off the medical side. They explore like your health factors, what you look like, what you might have like tastes for, what you would enjoy doing, whether or not you get sunburn, like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Ancestry is more the one that explores your actual relatives in the records, and they tie your DNA into that. So they're two separate companies.
Okay.
Different motivations.
Okay. Well, either way, they still have this genetic material, and they can use it to. I mean, I'm no geneticist, so I'm not sure on these things, but from what I can understand from it, is they could take the DNA from your saliva, and I mean it's a big sample, so they can use many samples of whoever you are. Now, in their first results, when they're first looking at your DNA and just telling you, hey, you're better suited for this, you're not suited for this, Well, as they're looking at that, well, this guy's better suited for staying out in the sun longer. So they take that strand of DNA, your strand, or whatever strand that they are looking at the moment, and they start tweaking it to like, well, if he can stay out in the sun longer and he doesn't get skin cancer or anything like that, well, how can we tweak it to where we can make it so we can put in this embryo or this person and give him the same trait? That way, if he were to say live on Mars, since Mars is depicted as being a very sunny planet, he would be able to survive on Mars better than, say, a person who gets sunburned real easy or has a family strain of skin cancer, or not strain, but like a family, what's the word I'm looking for?
Just like at risk genetically.
Yeah, at risk for like skin cancer or any kind of cancer, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's a loose theory, though. I mean, it's hard to like find evidence on that, I guess.
I mean, I'll look for it.
maybe in the future, if we actually see them go to those planets like Mars or to a moon like Titan or whatever.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they're starting all of a sudden. Well, not all of a sudden. I mean, we've always kind of had that aspiration for space exploration, but now our government is saying, hey, let's start up a space force. We might need to have this sometime. They're starting to prototype different types of suits. They're starting to prototype vehicles, things like that.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
they're going to Elon Musk, SpaceX for a lot of the stuff too.
Yeah.
Because apparently NASA lost all their technology to actually go to like the moon and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, how do you lose that stuff?
Right.
But that's another thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that just ties into the a bigger thought, a bigger theory that these big mega corporations like Google, Microsoft, Apple, they started off as media corporations,
Yeah.
you know, internet, music, movies, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But they've kind of evolved into these super societies
Yeah.
that they have motives, they have political aims, they see a future for the world and they want to build it.
I mean, you see it in like ads. I mean, Google owns YouTube,
Yeah.
so Google has the power to influence YouTube to say, okay, we have this ideal in our head, and we want to make sure that this ideal is spread to the masses.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that every single person that watches your platform has the same ideal.
Right.
And the people that don't, we want you to make sure that they are less seen, or we want to make sure that they aren't influenced at all.
Right.
Because they do not fit into our mold.
Right.
And, you know, that's really scary, because that's just like, that's over-conformity.
Yeah, and they're using legal loopholes to do that. Like, maybe not a loophole, but I mean, especially in America, we have the whole protection of freedom of speech. And Google and companies like Google are treading that line.
Mm-hmm.
They're creating it to where, yes, free speech is accepted, but there's so much speech and so much media and so much communication,
Mm-hmm.
and they control it because they're the biggest corporations and they all see a certain ideology.
Right.
They control it to where, yes, you can speak your mind, but unless you agree with them, you're going to be alienated, yeah. And there's no legal way to restrict that kind of force, that kind of, it is information warfare, it really is.
Mm.
There's no way to restrict that without taking away people's fundamental rights to speak their mind.
Right.
And they understand that. And so they're using that as a means to build their information empire. And I mean, in the modern world, information is the new currency.
Yes.
You know, if you know what's going on, you have all the power.
Yes.
And especially if you can control it,
Mm-hmm.
which they can. And I think they've pretty much established that hold on the world by now. So it is fishy that whenever they want to expand into other markets, especially those regarding people's identities, their
Mhm.
physical identities, not their online identities,
Right.
their actual bodies.
Yeah.
You know? So that's alarming. It is.
I mean, at that point, Google owns you.
Yeah.
At that point,
Yeah.
they own your DNA strand, your your bloodline necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And they, I mean, if they don't like a certain I mean, this is another theory, of course, but I mean, if they don't like a certain person, or if a certain person is um, con- not going to their mold or whatever it is,
A nonconformist.
then not a nonconformist,
Yeah.
then they can like get rid of that person and then put in a double of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
like a synthetic, you know.
Right. I think, yeah, the pathway that you can kind of see them going down is controlling evolution,
Mm-hmm.
controlling human evolution. First, they started with their minds through the internet, through what we see, hear, read, speak, and now they want to actually do it physically.
Yeah.
And we've seen plenty of social or science fiction movies, books, video games that have gone down this pathway.
And
It always ends back.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, we can't. It's hard to prove all this. It's hard to actually like.
It really is, and I mean, if you were to look into this and call a bunch of people or get a bunch of resources, at some point these big companies are going to say, okay, we need to snuff this guy out.
Yeah.
They're not going to like necessarily kill you, because then that's more suspicion on their hand. But if they were to say, put a cease and desist out, or we're going to sue you $2 billion. I mean, who has $2 billion?
Or they'll destroy your reputation.
Yeah, I mean, again, Google owns all the information you look up, everything that you know, everything that you've ever looked at on the internet. I mean, they can find that one thing and then blackmail you and say, hey, if you don't stop, we're going to put this out and we're going to ruin your whole life.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, more or less, it's kind of happened to people already.
Yeah.
Maybe not through just Google. I'm not accusing Google of doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's happened with other people before, you know.
But I mean, not necessarily just Google itself, but these platforms that can that you stream off of or you look up or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
they have this technology. They have this like a little memory card of you, and say somebody wants to buy, hey, you know, let me buy this guy's memory for $500. Well, okay, fine. Because whenever we agree to these things, like with Apple, if you agree to it, any information that you have on your iPhone or your Mac or anything like that, that information belongs to Apple. And they can do whatever they want with it, no matter what you say.
Right.
You agree to it, so you can't say anything.
Right.
Same thing with Google, same thing with YouTube, same thing with any other of
Your
these.
cell phone provider.
Your cell phone provider, anything really.
Yeah, really. And I think, I mean, we saw that with the Cambridge Analytica case on Facebook.
Yes.
That's exactly what they did. You know, they were selling information to a political company who was using it for suspicious means.
Yes.
Right? So, who's to say this very wealthy terrorist group comes in and buys all these people's information, all these important people's information, and suddenly releases all of their, you know, their Pornhub views or whatever. That kind of stuff. Like, that would be horribly degrading.
Not even on that,
to our
but
society.
like emails that people they talk to,
Yeah,
or
their emails, their financial
videos,
records,
pictures, things like
what
that.
they spend their money on, what they go to, where they eat,
Right.
how they eat, that kind of stuff. That's all readily available to be seen.
And the thing is, too, I think this also roots from net neutrality, because a few months ago, I don't know if you've seen it. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen it, but net neutrality is basically a law that protects us, in which these companies that have all this information on us or everything, they cannot sell this information to private companies or to private people. But that law, or not necessarily law, but a rule, was overruled by who was it? I forgot what the committee's name was. I remember the dude's face because he was everywhere. Ajik Singh or something like that. but he was in the committee of something. I can't even remember. But basically, from what I've seen, is all these things on information leakage and these companies like Google and Apple starting to buy up these other information seeking companies kind of started after that was repealed. And I mean it's happened before then too, but not as high as it is now. Because now these companies can go out if Google wants to buy what you search on whatever, or not Google, but like anybody wants to buy what you search on Google or anything like that. Now they have the right to. And I mean,
right, and I'm not saying they would, but we're putting an awfully large amount of trust into these companies that they're just gonna hold on to our information. They're just gonna hold on to everything we do. I don't buy that. I don't trust that.
no.
They're in it for the money. They're gonna sell people's information. I don't trust Mr. Zuckerberg, you know, because he's already proven that he will sell the information.
Yeah.
Or at least people in his company will,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then how can Google ensure that they're going to keep my information safe beyond deleting it?
I mean, and if we go back to Mark Zuckerberg, whenever he was getting interviewed by the Senate, why he did this and what was happening and things like that, Mark said afterwards, like, you know, hey, you know, this needs to be regulated. You know, we need to have the government come in and watch these companies and see what's happening and things like that. And that just puts more emphasis on the government that can come in and look at everything you're looking at.
Yeah, that just gives them the power to hurt you more.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to the companies sacrificing some of their knowledge, some of their abilities for your freedom, to privacy.
And another thing too, I mean, for people like us, we're in a generation where, you know, if somebody were to buy, if a company that we apply for, like a job or whatever, if that company says, well, you know, we have the money, well, let's buy this guy's, whenever they're doing a background check, let's look at this guy's browser history or something like that. And they don't find something, but they find something that's not necessarily in their interest or vulgar or anything like that. Not necessarily vulgar, but like something that's not in their interest. Like maybe this is a more liberal organization or something like that, and you support a lot of conservative social media things, or have a very conservative view on social media and things like that. They're like, well, y'all don't really meet. Now they can't tell you that you don't meet that quote unquote thing, but they can look at that and say, well, you're not going to get the job because you don't meet our standards or something like that.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and if you're not like the squeakiest, cleanest person, like it even comes down to like just researching maybe topics that are beyond the mainstream.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, the historical values of marijuana, something like that. You know, something mild, but still technically like fishy.
Yeah.
Or regarding an illegal substance.
Right.
A company can see that and still say, I mean, they can start making assumptions.
Like, oh, well, he's a druggie, so let's not do this.
Right, exactly. And that wouldn't even be true. You just research something.
Right.
You know, that's what I'm kind of scared of, because like that limits what people can research without getting consequences, what people can learn without getting consequences.
And that's another thing too. It limits information.
Yeah.
Because it just dumbs us down.
Yeah.
To where we know what's popular right now, what's trending, because everyone knows it.
What's safe and what will only allow you to stay welcome in a powerful society.
Yes.
In a powerful society.
And it's not fair, because people like to go out and not necessarily use this to their advantage, but just to learn about it. Because people, you know, history teaches us a lot about what we should and shouldn't do within a society. And if we go around and we ignore that, well, then we're just going to end up making the same mistakes. Like right now, I think we're making some really big mistakes, and no one's really blowing a whistle, because we're all so into ourselves
Mm.
that we can't really look and see the big picture. Hey, this isn't cool. I mean, this is happening to a lot of people, not necessarily people that we know, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are companies that go out and they look at your internet history, or they look at your social media, they look at what you watch on YouTube, and they make their assumptions off of that. And it's like, that's not really your, that shouldn't be your problem, because this is something that they do in their private time. You see, a person is different whenever you are at work and when you're with your friends, or when you're in your own private home or things like that. You know, people enjoy looking at like gun videos about how to mod a gun or something like that, or how to, I don't know, make costumes or stuff like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or they like watching a certain conservative speaker, or they like watching a certain liberal speaker. I mean, it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it shouldn't matter on what they do in their personal life, because what they do personally, what they do within public in a workplace is much, much different. Now, some people don't, and I can understand that. But I mean, you would see this reflecting in their work instead of it reflecting on their browser. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think another kind of going on that track, the founders of a lot of these companies and the heads of a lot of these organizations seem to have this ideology in their mind. This, I guess, it's transhuman, like
What do you mean?
trying to push the human race beyond what it is now through technology, like building societies where technology rules and that humans could have anything at the touch of their fingertips. Like,
so like a labor kind of.
yeah, becoming basically androids, like
Okay.
having everything available to you at
Right.
all times instantly. You know, I think that's kind of the world of the future they see,
Mhm.
the one that they want to create.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of problems with that I don't think they have looked into, yeah, because they don't have to. They don't live in the real world.
Yeah.
A lot of times they live in their conclaves of wealth and privilege, and they're around people who think like them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't see what it's like for the real world and for real people. And, you know, you have this lofty version of the world in your head, what you want it to be, but how are you going to get there? You know, a lot of people are going to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people do suffer, or are starting to,
Yes.
because of those ideas.
Because it's unfair to people who, I guess, the only people, well, the people that I can see this hurting the most are people in low incomes
Mm-hmm.
and in middle society. Because as the elite get bigger and richer and things like that, they're going to find ways to, because they can see that they are the odd ones out. They are the minority and we are the majority.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to try their best to get the upper hand on us. So they're going to keep our information. They're going to sell it within each other's little circles, and they're going to use it to take advantage of us. Because together we're strong,
Right.
but whenever they pinpoint one person,
Yeah.
and it really discourages the others.
And we've seen that with the media companies. You know, they try to keep us divided ideologically. And then the big companies, they sell us things.
Mm-hmm.
They keep us divided monetarily.
Yes.
We spend all of our money on ourselves. We don't contribute to causes. We don't save money. So we're dependent on our paycheck that we work for, our dead-end job.
Yeah.
We're constant consumers, so we don't think beyond this next 2 weeks or this next month or whatever. And then in the meantime, we're distracted by the issues,
Mm-hmm.
which are invented most of the time by media corporations who are paid by the same people.
Yes.
You know, and it creates a world that's very angry, very bitter, very disunified, but it spends a lot of money, and it's ready and willing to listen to the newest fad idea.
Right.
which I think is exactly what they want. The best customer is one who's not satisfied with their life.
Mm-hmm. And I think for our generation and like the generation of workforce now, we are worked harder than any other generation before us. That includes the Great Depression. That includes World War II. So, and there's more of us now.
Right.
A lot more of us. And we're all, not only are we all competing for the same job, not only are there thousands in our same job or whatever it is that we're trying to do in the workforce, but we are constantly trying to compete with each other, and these higher ups, they see that, so they make it harder for people to get the job that they want, the engineering job that they want, or the jobs that really matter.
Mm-hmm.
So they try restricting it more with red tape or anything like that, or you have to have this much experience for. You have to be 22 years old and you have to have 30 years of experience.
Right. Yeah, that kind of
You've
stuff.
heard.
Yeah.
You've heard the whole thing.
Yeah, we've seen that. So only the best of the best, the kids that were raised in that kind of environment, the top environment, the best environment, who had all those opportunities, can get those kind of jobs.
The thing is, nowadays we don't have that.
No.
I mean, if you were to go back maybe 40 years ago, things were a lot different. They were easier. It was easier for you to go out like after high school,
Mm-hmm.
go out into the workforce and work a job that can support you.
Right.
Not only you, but also a family. I mean, maybe not as well as, say, a job that you would get from college or something like that with having a degree, but it was easier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nowadays you can have a degree and not have a job.
Right.
It's like where does that come from? It's because we're all competing for the same job, and the people who are already in that position stay there for years on end.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you don't need.
They don't move up. No one moves up. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's such a tight end thing, and if you want to move up, you have to suck up so much to the higher ups,
Mm-hmm.
and even then, you might not get that job because either they were just using you so you could get this quota out and make them look good, and
Yeah.
then just leave you in the dirt.
Yeah. I think that's always been around, but for our generation especially, getting started is just so hard.
Yes.
We do put in the hours. People like to not look at that, but we do. People are working above 40-hour weeks. They're working 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks, and walking away with nothing for it.
A lot of our generation are working more than one job, more than two jobs.
Yeah.
And still, they have to work day in, day out, and it's just to make meets end.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, how do you expect us to do that and also give to our society?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the baby boomers didn't have to worry about this.
Yeah.
The generation before that, Generation X, didn't have to worry about this. And things like that, so on and so forth. So, there are a lot of people who say, oh, the millennials are lazy or anything like that. And some of us are. I mean, that's with any generation. There's always a lazy part to the generation. The thing is, we have the cards are stacked against us.
It's very easy to give up.
Yes.
It is.
The world is so malicious now.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not on your A game 24/7, it's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, even if you are on your A game 24/7, you might not get what you want.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not fair. Because once all these people die out, we're the ones that are left with the mess.
Mm-hmm. But our society's been structured so that the people who are in those positions will only be taken by their descendants.
Yes.
Their children, the people who were raised like them, who have the same ideologies as them. And it's creating a society where getting out of your class structure is almost impossible. Um, and if you want to, you're going to be sacrificing something. You're going to be sacrificing your family. You're going to be sacrificing your ideologies. You're going to be sacrificing something, your lifestyle, to try to get there. We're all familiar with the story of the person who is fundamentally against what their company does, but does it anyway because it means success and they can feed their family. But I think the situation most of us are in our generation is they're working their jobs and they're so done with listening to everybody's ideological crap on social media, in the news, TV, that they self-medicate, and they do that with partying, with drugs, with their lifestyle,
with
going
alcohol
all the time, buying expensive stuff. So they have all of that. They're consuming a lot to feel better, but there's never any growth. And I think that's what these companies want. I really do.
And I really don't understand, because that doesn't fit the mold on what this country was built on.
No, not at all.
We are supposed to, not only are we supposed to give to them, but they're supposed to give back. They're supposed to take this money, either invest it into something better that will better our society, or, give it back to their employees, or give it back to charity, things like that, And, of course they do charities, they do all this stuff, but that's just like the little sliver of what they earn within.
Most of it's going to fund more of their
escapades,
futuristic, ideological stuff, and then the other is going to fill their pocketbooks.
And the thing is, too, a lot of these people, like the software engineers for Google and all things like, they're like that.
Yeah.
They're like these little robot people. And it's like, this, I don't know why would we give these people our money? Because they have, they're so against human society now. They don't really care if people die from hunger. They don't care if, the little guys trying to build up again. They're either going to buy out their company or they're going to destroy it through competition. And I understand that's how a capitalist system works. It's through competition. But if you are so powerful that you could just come and stamp somebody out, then I don't think there is no economic fairness anymore.
Yeah, it's become an economic oligarchy. And that's not exactly capitalism either.
And that's the problem we had back in the 1900s. We had Rockefeller, we had H.P. Morgan. They had these monopolies on oil, on electricity, on steel.
Well, at least back then there was a face to it. Nowadays there is no face to it.
You don't know who nobody can tell me who the CEO of Google is without looking them up.
And that's the thing, is like, it's not just the CEO.
But it's the board members.
It's all of them. It's the entire company. They have the same motives. And it's not just Google, it's Microsoft, it's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's all of these companies who have the same agenda, and there's no face to the evil. There's no way to pinpoint what the problem is. And like back in the day, it was individual men getting extremely rich off of their companies. Nowadays, it's millions of employees getting wealthy and getting privileges from their companies, and they keep getting it as long as they buy into it. And as long as they continue to keep the little guy down. How do you fight that? It's not just about restricting this guy's income. It's not about taking away some of his money. It's about getting rid of their power. And you can't just do that.
I don't know if you've ever seen Silicon Valley, but it kind of, I don't really like the show because I don't like the actors, but it hits on a lot of this, because there's this guy, he's trying to start off his it's like a compression system. It's how to compress software into something that will fit on a hard drive, or something you can email, stuff like that. And it's supposed to do it like super quick. And all these companies are trying to buy him up because it's the next big thing. It's this, because he was doing it for like songs and stuff like that.
Right.
But there are ways you can do that to like ship entire softwares across the sea, or patents or things like that.
Right.
Or like you can fit this entire algorithm on this little computer chip.
Right.
And so they're trying to buy him up and stuff like that. But you see that aspect of how malicious these companies are, and how they want to be the best, and they're going to try everything they can to do what they can to beat everyone else. Not only everyone else, but the little guy. Because they are so scared of little companies make the next best thing, and it makes them irrelevant. And you can see the leaders of these companies. They're very, very antisocial, for one. They don't like people. They are very odd, like very, very well, not quirky, but like they don't like being around crowds, and they're like the
They're the anti-CEO.
Yeah.
They really are, because the old CEOs were like
very boisterous, very
people,
like
very powerful,
yes.
very outgoing. These guys, I mean, and ladies too, I guess. It's like whatever motives they have in their head, or whatever, however they think, they are very anti-people. They don't want to be around. They act strange, like you said. They have this weird, they're just like, have this weird embodiment of
what they are. And
yeah, it's like, it's only me.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm the personality and everyone else is like below me.
Yeah.
Or something, or dirty. Like, get away from me. That kind of
Yes.
stuff. And that's not good leadership to have.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, they're a bunch of little. I mean, not to hate on nerds, because I'm a nerd too, but they're that type of nerd where the other nerds don't even want to hang out with that one.
Yeah.
Because they're so full of themselves, and they're so like, oh, I'm the smartest person in the world, or stuff like that,
Yeah.
And it's like, I can understand you're very good at creating code, or you can create an algorithm that can solve world hunger or something like that. But at the same time, there has to be the human aspect to it, and there has to be this morality to whenever you run with a business. Because of course competition is great and all, but what's the point of having competition if you're just going to stamp someone out because you're scared that they're going to take a little bit more money from your shares than you would probably have if they weren't there? What's $1 billion to $1 trillion company is what I'm saying, basically. Or like, not even that, like $1 million.
Right.
That's nothing to these people nowadays.
But they'll still destroy.
And
they'll still want it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all, we're just throwing those ideas out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's all speculation.
It is, but it's just what we feel and see. The kind of life we're living right now.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, it is.
Because, I mean, you don't know, for the regular person, that doesn't understand what's going on and how these things are happening. All of a sudden we're moving to Mars, or all of a sudden, there's this new app that can change our face or stuff like that. It's like, what are you supposed to do? You go with the trend, or are you going to fight it? I mean, we're all guilty of things like, I play Pokemon Go, and I mean, that uses Google Maps. So basically they're seeing wherever you're going all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've signed away my life to Google, basically. They know my DNA, they know my finances, they know my spending habits, they know where I go, they know who I associate with. So they do. They have all the power, and I'm lucky that they haven't knocked on my door and said, "Hey, how you doing?" and zapped me right there. But they could. They very well could, and no one would be able to say anything. And so that's the alarming part, is that tinfoil hat time, they could turn into an organization like
Yeah.
the Institute or like, I forgot what it was in Oryx and Creek, but that kind of business. Or they could be trying to push us further to other planets, but leave all the plebeians here.
Right.
That kind of stuff. They could very easily be that, and we're lucky that they haven't. But there's no rules to say they can't.
No, there isn't. And I mean, more than likely, they're just doing this to better themselves or to make more money. That's always always what they're trying to do. But of course, you could, a few years down the line, they can say, oh, we're doing this so we can annihilate the inferiors and only have the best of the best. But like I said, this is all that speculation. We'll probably never know. I mean, these companies are so powerful now that you can't really touch them. Not even our own government can touch them because they are so influential towards not only our society but the world society.
Yeah.
Because I mean, everyone in the world knows what Google is. Everyone knows what an Apple iPhone is.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stop something like that? It's crazy.
That's the thing. These monsters were created by utilizing our fundamental rights to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So, to smother the monster, you have to cut off his life supply, which is the ability to use freedom, free rights, to further themselves.
Yeah.
Well, if you make one rule, you have to make it for everybody.
Yeah.
So they lose out, well, so does everybody else.
Yeah. And not only that, but if we were to shut down these platforms, if we were to shut down these companies, they are so integrated within the lives of so many people that no one would be able to function without them. I mean, everyone has a smartphone now. Everyone has a laptop that runs off of Microsoft. Everyone has something. Everyone has the little Alexa or the Siri or the Google Home thing that runs their entire house, And it comes to a point now if you say, oh, well, I'm just gonna cut cold turkey. How far are you gonna get in this life now?
Good luck. Yeah.
How are you gonna call people? How are you going to interact with people? Make plans, get a job, things like that. There's so many people that now require you to know Microsoft, to know Google Docs and things like that. It's like you can't function without it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's scary.
Well, those are just our thoughts. We thought we'd bounce them off you guys. Mm-hmm. Let us know what you think.
Yes, let us know what you think. If you think we're wrong and you think Google or anything like that is the best thing in the world, let us know. If you agree with us, well, be careful.
Maybe we can think of some solutions together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm your host, Rusty.
And I'm Mr. J.
This was The Edge of Madness.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.